Many of those in the room are second chair. They're not senior pastors. When this bubbles up from below, when this bubbles up from the congregation, when this is the heart and vision of the associate pastor, the discipleship pastor, but the pastor's not there, what does she do?
Yeah, I am the second chair leader, and in the beginning of this process, it didn't take much to get Gavin on board because his heart changed quickly, and I told you the conversation that we had there. I've also been in those churches where that was the case. So here's what I would say to you. One is, you've got to be faithful to do what God has called you to do, and you do it with all your heart. And you spread that message, and you do discipleship, and you invest in people, and you mentor, and you do all of those things that you know that you're supposed to be doing, okay? Don't forget to pray for your pastor, because like I said, he's not the groom. He's still the under-shepherd. He's fallible. And we need to pray for our pastors, for vision, for discipleship, for those things that if it's a passion within you that a church needs to head that way, don't forget to pray for him that same Holy Spirit, that same God that impacted you and has changed your heart will guide him and bring the whole staff with the pastor's leadership under one umbrella. Very, very important.
Don't use dynamite.
Yeah, and guys, let me just, I'm a second chair leader also, so here's the thing. Make it easy for your pastor. All right? So, he's just as busy as we are, if not busier. So, send him some stories. Tell him what's happening. Literally, I can't even know what's going on in the preschool and children's ministry, and I'm the discipleship minister. And on a large staff, there's no way your pastor can know what's happening in every age group. He doesn't know those stories. He wasn't at Panama City when 28 students were baptized, or see that child in Marketplace when they asked Jesus into their heart. So tell those stories for him. And if you'll tell the stories, you'll do exactly what Robbie was talking about, is you'll move them from a metric scorecard to a transformational scorecard. And it'll make it easier. And what will happen is it'll intuitively, then that pastor will pick up those stories and to be able to infuse them. The other thing I would encourage you to do is pass up intentional language. If you've got language that's important to you in your ministry that you want him... So at Brentwood, we talk about moving forward to a Christ-centered life. I have to use that phrase around him. I have to send that in my emails to him to encourage him. And I don't say, hey, you didn't hear you say moving forward to Christ-centered life. I use that intuitively as we help people move toward Christ-centeredness or a Christ-like life. Intuitively, then he begins to pick up on that. And this takes time to do that. And the last thing I would tell you is, and this is just being real with you, the truth of the matter is some of you guys, we've had conversation where you get frustrated because the pastor won't promote our program. The truth of the matter is get on your knees and pray and just keep doing what you said. Just keep working the field that God's put before you, and keep, working with the people that God allows you to work with, and allow him to take care of that. Don't get frustrated, and for goodness sake, don't fall to sin. And don't start talking bad about your pastor. And
right.
Man, if you want to, let's get real with it. Let's not get off in the back room with our student pastors or whatever and start going, well, I wish the pastor would talk about discipleship more. Boy, that's not edifying. It's not God-honoring. It doesn't help you. It doesn't help the church, and it doesn't help the staff.
Yeah, I asked Bill Hall the same question. I said, why? Oh, so let me ask you a question. How many senior pastors in here? Okay. You guys are the rarity, because I would say most senior pastors, just the generation of a culture before, no one talked about disciple making. It was always evangelism. It was always Sunday school. It was never really disciple making. So I asked Bill Hall, I said, Bill, how are we going to reach the pastors? He said, I have tried to reach the pastors for 35 years. And he said, now I'm bypassing the pastors. He said, I'm going to the pew. He said, because pastors are pragmatists. When pastors see something working, we're all pragmatists in a sense. If we see something working, then we'll say, well, let me see what that's about. And so what he said is we started a fire in the pew. And then the pastor would get involved in kind of a reverse engineering type of approach. So I would just say, just like we've said, I would be faithful with God's called you. And the greatest spiritual thing you can do is find 3 to 5 men you can start meeting with tomorrow. Probably the greatest way I'd start.
Let me add a word or two here as someone that feels deeply called to the number 2 chair for many, many years. good leaders lead a variety of different ways. We supervise some people, so we lead down. People in the church, we lead horizontal, but good leaders also know how to lead upward and influence upward as well. And that may not just happen overnight. It takes a while to do that as we're under the authority of the leadership of our senior pastors. But particularly in the last 10 years, as I have visited with hundreds, if not thousands, of church leaders and pastors, one thing I've noticed, I have not found a single pastor that does not want to see two things happen. One, people come to faith in Jesus. Number two, people mature in Christ. You put those two together, that's called discipleship. It's what we've been saying all along. It's a railroad track. Two things, people being saved, people being matured. That's discipleship, and every pastor I know wants to see that happen. And for us to walk alongside the pastor and say, Pastor, I'm with you in this, and together we'll begin this. Now, here's what the pastor doesn't want to see. The pastor does not want to see the church blow up. We came through a period of time I call the what's hot now era of church life that went about 20 years, where we saw more churches split and more pastors and staff get fired than any time we can think of in history, because we tried to become the church next door. We're not going to become the church next door, but God has a mission for our church, which the mission is how we go about accomplishing the Great Commission. And if we help the pastor, walk alongside the pastor, identify that mission, and then provide that leadership, we'll be partners together in ministry. If the pastor is hesitant, he's hesitant because he doesn't want to see this thing blow up. Well, we don't either. Nobody does. But as Pastor Robbie just said, if we begin that process, we get 3 or 4 people. We all have influence over people in the church. We get them to get a few people that are ready to go. I bet every once in the room can name some people in our church right now, they're ready to go to be disciplers. Let's get them going. And that's how we begin that process.